Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Keith, aka Sincere. And before we get started tonight, I just want to say welcome. Thank you for once again tuning into the podcast. Um, this one tonight is going to be called Monsters and Men. And before we get started, let me first say go ahead and hit that like and subscribe and make some comments there down at the bottom. And we're here shortly. We're going to get into this and we're going to make this thing happen. Stick with me just for a little bit as I get everything going. And I'll be back with you in a minute. All right, everybody. So we are back and we are about to get started. Of course, tonight's podcast is called Monsters and Men. I want to throw my thing up onto the screen so that I can see it. We're going to start out with a quote from Jordan Peterson, and it says, "You should be an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war." Guys, that has never been so true in your entire life. You have to have some type of something in you that gets you going every day. The responsibilities of us men have been laid out from the very beginning. The principles in Genesis all the way into Revelations that we are supposed to be leaders, providers, and protectors. And so, with that being said, we need to learn how to harness all our masculinity and then be able to put that in control and be able to release that when the time is right. So, without any further ado, men, let's talk the truth. Are we supposed to be kings? And is everybody supposed to be a king? Once again, I'll say that. I'll say that again. Are we supposed to be kings? And is everyone meant to be a king? I'm gonna say this. We are supposed to be kings, but is everyone meant to be a king? My answer is no. Honestly speaking, we all have different positions in life. We all have different things that we should do and we need to do. But not all of us are going to be at the top of the charts. That's just the way life is. Some of us are going to be sergeants, generals, um, jesters, whatever there is in life. But here's what the thing is: you need to learn how to accept your role and embrace it so that you can make the most out of your role and your position. Everybody in life is not called to be the chief. There can only be one chief at a time. And if we all looking to be the chief, we never achieve anything. We never continue to grow. We never continue to push forward. We never continue to make things the way that they should be in life. So, what is and later on we're going to answer the question of what if you are called to be a king. What is a king supposed to do, and what is a king supposed to look like? But I'm here to tell you right now, not everybody is meant to be a king, and you have to be okay with that. If everybody, there was once a quote said in The Incredibles, and I'm gonna say it right now. The villain of that picture said, "If everybody is super, then nobody is super." And I'm gonna say that as being kings, right? If everybody's a king, then nobody is a king, right? And if you want to look at this from a biblical perspective, it says the Bible never calls us kings and queens except in certain contexts. There's one king that's the Lord Jesus, right? And then all the rest of us are his prince and princesses. But in this particular case, there's a prince, and he has given us rulership over the things that we had. He wants to see how well we manage these things, how well we are going to do and putting these things together that he has for us. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next slide. All right. So, let's be honest, guys. Here it is, man. A lot of times we are not honest with ourselves. We are not honest with other people, and we are definitely not honest with God, because being honest is a hard thing to do, um, especially here in this day and age that we live in this life that we lead. Um, Men are oftentimes looked at as weak and pathetic if we let our emotions, or even how we feel come out, um, in such a way where it seems uh, like it's weak, or in any type of way not good. All right. So uh, I I had to be real honest with myself at a point in my life, and I took some time to journal, which I do every single day. I take some time to stop, pray, journal. Just giving you some insight to what I do. I stop, I pray, and I journal. Um, and then I read God's word. I mean, those are a couple of things that I think every man should have in his life. They install discipline, and they help with responsibility, which is what we're going to talk about later. But this is what I wrote. I said, I'm offended. I'm not sure why, uh, but it's a if it's a response, or if it's just my selfish nature and the way that I am. Am I still in love with the world and what it has to offer? I have more questions now than I do anger. There are many times that I've been offended, but I know I can't linger on the offense or risk sinning. But for the reason I am asking these questions is, am I still very lustful? Am I still very offended? Am I still looking for the approval of man? Is this just part of my nature? Am I really changed from sinner to saint? Or am I just doing some kind of religious chore, depending and pretending like I'm righteous? Because I'm trying to compare my life to those of the Bible, and those who are in current ministry, and those who are in high places of privileges and honor. Am I justifying my realistic approach to living for a lack of holiness, or a lack of being pure? What does holiness really mean? Am I really being changed, or is this some just delusional thing? Where should I be at this point in my walk? How much have I grown? I'm so uncertain about things, and it is unsettling. This is a problem. This is a problem that has been lingering, because it's not comfortable to be in this position, and things are not certain. At this point, I have no choice but to trust in God, or to go crazy. So, God, I'm leaving everything else in your hands. This is not at all what I expected. So, my point in reading of that whole thing was to say, at times it's okay. It is okay to be honest with ourselves, and be honest with our Creator, to be honest with the things that we struggle with. We don't have to tell the whole world about it, as I just did and showcased it, but we need to be honest. If we can't be honest with somebody that's invisible and unseen, then that already knows all your major thoughts, and what you're thinking and what you're saying, how can we expect to be vulnerable when it comes to mating, dating, and choosing spouses? I mean, come on. Let's be realistic here. We keep on talking about how uh and this is going off topic just a little bit. We keep on talking about how we want women to be a certain way. what is the way we are supposed to be? And the only way we find out what we are supposed to be is to start being honest with ourselves and honest with who we are and what things look for us right now. Because every day you're not going to have it all planned. Every day you're not going to have it all figured out. Every day you're not going to have everything together like you should. And you got to be honest enough with yourself to say, I don't know. I'm confused. I'm angry. And all these things don't need to be shared with everybody, but you got to be honest enough with yourself to go ahead and release those things, get it out. And the better and the more you get it out, the better you are in dealing with that situation, the better you are in being able to hear God's voice for you, the better you'll be in handling those situations. It's oftentimes when we're not honest with ourselves, when we say we got it all together, we got it all figured out, is when everything falls apart for us. So, gentlemen, let's be honest. Let's be honest with ourselves. So, let's move on. Next slide. Next slide. All right. So who we supposed to be? And I told you this is a part of it where we're going to get into kingship. But let me first talk about the story of Adam and Eve. I'm sure we all know this story. God created man in his likeness, in his image. Uh, he created them both male and female, and he put them in the garden, told them to fill the earth and subdue it. Now, here's the thing about it. If we go into Genesis in chapter 3, uh, uh, off no caveat, I am going to talk a lot from a biblical perspective about these viewpoints and worldviews that I have. So if you're not a Christian, cool, tune in, get what you can get from it. But if you are, I hope you're really getting something from this. Um, we look at the deception after the deception happened uh, with Eve. Who did God come to first? He came to Adam. He came to Adam first. And he asked Adam, "Where are you?" He said, "I hid because I heard you in the cool of the garden, and I hid because I was naked." And God asked him, "Who told you you were naked?" Right there, it was the time for Adam to take accountability for his actions. But what did he do? He chose to push the blame on Eve. Guys, let me say this. And I like to imagine things when I read scripture. I can imagine if the serpent tempted Eve, Adam saw it and said, "I'm not going to participate." God would have made him another mate or brought him another mate because she was created out of Adam. So you think God can't reduplicate that process? No, I think he very well would. But the thing about it is that Adam didn't want to take accountability. He didn't have the right discipline installed in him in order to carry on in that particular process. Who we're supposed to be is the ruler, is the one who stands in front and says, "I'm gonna take the blame. I'm gonna take the shots. I'm gonna take the calls because that's who we are." And this is exactly why I say some of us are not meant to be kings because there is a big requirement put on those who are called to be kings. Now, I'm going to look up a scripture in particular that's going to describe kingship from a biblical standpoint. Just give me a second here. Right. So, it's it's in Deuteronomy 17 verses 15 through 20, and I'm gonna read it all here off my phone. And it says this is what happens when you are selected to be a king and a man of the Lord. Your fellows will appoint you. It cannot be a foreigner. A king must not be built up with large stables for himself, or send things to be bought out of Egypt, for the Lord has told him never to return to Egypt. The king must not have many wives for himself, because their heart will be turned away from the Lord. He must not accumulate large amounts of wealth and silver and gold for himself. He must sit on the throne as king and copy the body of his instructions on a scroll as the Levitical priests have presented it. He must always have that copy with him. Read it daily for as long as he lives. That way he learns to fear the Lord and to obey the terms which were decreed in his instruction, which were decreed in the instructions. This is a regular reading that will prevent him from becoming proud and acting like he is above his fellow citizens. It is always to prevent him from turning away from the commands in any small ways, and to be sure that he has enriched himself and his descendants for a long reign in his generation. Guys, how many people want to stand up to that responsibility? As I read that off, and I read it fairly quickly, but if you go back and read that, particularly in the NLT, you will see that there are massive amount of requirements. And a lot of times when we think of kings in a broad sense, we think of money, wealth, influence, but the scriptures go contrary to that. It says we shouldn't have all that. We shouldn't have a ton of wives. We shouldn't have a ton of gold. Basically, we become a servant to everybody else. We're here to overlook the people. And as we overlook the people, we're supposed to keep the laws that we have in mind, so that we don't get proud, so that we don't feel like we're above anybody, so that we don't feel like this is the monster that we're keeping under control. Because see, that monster of pride and that monster of jealousy and rage builds up in us as we get promoted, right? As we become somebody in this world. And oftentimes we feel like we're better than because we have, but we're not. We're we're supposed to use the power and the influence we get in order to build up our community, build up our people, build up the others. But oftentimes we don't. We see ourselves as the ones to be served instead of serving others. So when you start saying, I'm a king, 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 ask yourself, who am I serving? Am I self-serving? Am I taking up responsibility? Do I have the discipline in order to be that kind of person? Because if we can, once again, going back to another point, if we completely honest with ourselves, ain't none of us doing it like that, including me. Including me. I got a long ways to go. And in the years that I've been alive, I can clearly say that some of this stuff I'm starting to learn now, which I feel ashamed to say, but I'm being honest. I'm starting to learn some of this stuff now because of the things that I have gone through, because of the stuff that I have been, because I didn't have my perspective right. And in saying and in getting a proper perspective, there are a few things that we must have in place as men. We must have discipline, which brings me right into the next one. So I looked up the word discipline, and here's what it means according to the Webster's Dictionary: to gain control by being enforced or obedience of order, an orderly prescribed conduct or a pattern of behavior, self control or punishment, training that corrects molds, training that corrects molds, perfects mental faculties or moral characters, a field of study, a rule or system of rules governing one's conduct or activity? Do we have discipline? I can say clearly in this generation of men, we don't have discipline. We 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 don't have discipline. Here's how I know. I see a lot more young men doing stuff that I think is absolutely outrageous, acting in ways that are absolutely outrageous. I mean, it's even gone as far as some thinking that they're a complete different gender. And I'm not trying to say that to uh, demean anybody, but where there's a discipline in place, you don't often see these things. You don't often see these things where there's a, 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 a way to conduct yourself, where there are rules and regulations. You don't see young men out in the street killing each other. You don't see them pretending to be something that they're not. You don't see them going off and doing craziness. It's all a lack of discipline. And where you have discipline, you can start to gain a structure. Which brings me right into the next point. Structure. What is the definition of structure? Something built as a dwelling, a shelter, a place for human activity, something that is put together or arranged, or a connecting part of an arrangement, or something that has a basic form. That's according to the Webster's Dictionary. So let's look at that. Something that is put together, that is connected with that is connected by an array of parts. Something that has basic form, right? Structure is developed through discipline. I'll say that one more time. Structure is developed through discipline. You can't have structure without having discipline. This is another key. There's three keys in being a man. Three. Discipline, structure, and responsibility. Discipline, structure, and responsibility. Discipline, structure, and responsibility. This is how you control the monster, right? This is how you keep checks and balances. This is after you have that mindset. This is putting together those pieces and saying, okay, according to the rules and regulations, and according to the system that I've put in place, that has been put in place for myself, this is how things should be done. And for all of you that claim you want to be high value men, or you want to be husbands, or you want to be entrepreneurs, or whatever it is you're looking to be, you need these two keys. You can't build a structure. You can't build an array of parts for people to have a basic form, because you don't have any principles to stand on. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Uh, Before you build a house, you've got to have a plan, right? So your plan is your discipline. And now, after you have your plan, you put together the structure. This is the base and the foundation, right? There it is, plain and simple. Your discipline is your blueprint, and then your structure is your foundation. You got to have both, or you'll never learn how to tame the monster inside. We are created with rage. We are created with high levels of testosterone. We are created with an aggressive nature, and we will never learn how to tame that without discipline, and then being able to use that discipline to create structure. This is what they do in the military. This is what they do in the police force. They teach you how to be disciplined so you can have structure around all that aggression, around all that pride, or around all that machismo. These are the things that we oftentimes get wrong. And society says you don't really need these things. Just go with the flow. No, we can't do that. We are literally living in an age where we see uh, where they say don't have structure, don't have discipline, how chaotic it is, how terrible things are. So we can't afford to continue down this path. We need structure and discipline. So let's move on to the third thing we need. We need responsibility. We need responsibility. What does the word responsibility mean? As in blame, a state of holding one accountable for the cause of something that needs to be set right. As an obligation, something that we must do in order to agree with something prior. Uh, as in reliability, worthiness of one's recipient, and the trust of another's confidence or trust. Responsibility. That's what it is according to the Webster's Dictionary. And I'm sorry, guys, if I'm stumbling over words. I'm trying to get through this uh, fairly quickly. And forgive me, I should probably be sharing screens, but uh, like I said, I'm learning this stuff as I go. I'm driving this car as we go. Um, After you have the discipline, after you have the structure, the foundation, now you can start putting on the pieces of the house. Right? You can start putting the house together and making it look nice. This is what responsibility is. This is when you can start for high value men networking. This is when you can start thinking about being a husband, right? Because now you're taking on something. People are beginning to trust you with stuff because they see that you have a plan, that you have a structure. Your foundation is in place. This is what most women mean when they say they want a man of character. They don't necessarily mean nice guys and good guys. They want a man with discipline, structure, and responsibility. And one of the ways you can show how disciplined, how solid your structure is, and how responsible is you are, is by your financial means. I'm not saying that's the only way that it can be proven, but that is one. That is one. And I'm gonna tell you, like my dad once told me, in order to be with a young woman or be with a woman, you must show yourself as somebody that's responsible, somebody that's able to shoulder responsibility, somebody who's reliable, somebody who can come into somebody that she can come into agreement to. You can't say you want a fit feminine and friendly woman who's going to submit to your will when you don't have any of this. And then your discipline is lacking, your structure is lacking, and all of a sudden you want to come along and young ladies, they need to be this, they need to be that, and you not none of that. That's crazy. That is absolutely preposterous. You are absolutely insane. I'm gonna say this much. Some of you guys are as delusional as these women are, because you don't even have these three things in place. But now all of a sudden, you want some woman to come and bow down and kneel yield to you. Are you insane? Now, if you got your act together and you may not be at a particular level, then that's just preferences. That's somebody being picky, right? Because hey, you got your discipline together, you got your structure together, you're responsible. Okay, cool. You're not her preference. You're not her type. She's going to have to live with the consequences of her choices. But you can't sit there and demand for something that you're not. You haven't even learned how to tame your monster. You haven't even learned how to control who you are, what you are. You haven't even figured out your purpose. You don't even know whether or not you're a king or whatever it is you're a part of. We're all a part of a system. We're all a part of a body. We got to figure out what role we are meant to play. We keep on wanting to throw titles on ourselves as men without having some of this stuff. And I'm not speaking to those who have it together. Please, 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 please. Um, don't get me wrong. I'm not speaking to those that have things together, or getting things together, or pivoting into that direction, right? Because as we go through life, we're all going to learn and grow and keep continuing to progress. But if you're somebody that's sitting there stagnant, somebody that's sitting there doing nothing, or somebody that's sitting there complaining, you can't expect anything. You can't expect anything at all. You have to have these things. You have to know these things, guys. These. I'm I'm speaking about this first because men are important. We are the ones that lead the world. We are the ones that make the changes. We are the ones that get things together. And if we don't have it together, nothing else is going to happen. We've got to learn now. We've got to get it together now. It's time for us to step up. I know a lot of us are, but we got another generation out there that is not living by the same rules we are. And it's time for us to not just say that we got all this. It's time for us to start showing them that we have all this. It's time for us to start demonstrating that we have all this. Because without that, we're doomed for failure. We see it every day, all the time. If you look at the media, you look at the news, we see how chaotic and crazy it's getting out here. So, my conclusion. Here's my conclusion. We all need to accept our roles in life and learn how to adapt to the times. Guys, let me say this. I know that the world is changing, and uh, things are getting crazy and people are doing a lot of stuff backwards. But where we have discipline, structure, and responsibility, we can learn how we can tame our monster inside of us and be the men that we're really supposed to be. That's all I really got to say for tonight. I hope that this is going to help somebody. Um, I hope that uh, this podcast is really going to get through in the future. Um, Once again, comment, like, subscribe. Go ahead and pop that off. Um, and until then, I'll see you next time. My name is Keith, aka Sincere, and I'll see you next time. Peace.